What if the home you've been searching for isn't built with walls or wood, but with a child's whisper and a stranger's embrace? Loneliness doesn't always come in silence. Sometimes it sits across from us at dinner. Sometimes it lingers in rooms we no longer enter. Many of us carry invisible wounds, loss, betrayal, abandonment. We put up walls not to protect ourselves from others, but to keep our hopes from rising again. But every once in a while, life hands us an unexpected moment, one that gently asks, what if you let someone in just one more time? This is the story of a man raising his daughter through quiet grief, a woman who thought she had nothing left to give, and a little girl who believed one cookie could change the world. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you may find that the family you need might just find you first. It started with a cookie, and a child's voice so soft it might have gotten lost in the falling snow if it hadn't carried so much weight. You need a home, and I need a mommy. 4-year-old Laya had said it with all the sincerity a child can muster, standing in front of a shivering woman wrapped in a coat that had clearly seen better days. Her mittened hands gently placed a bear-shaped cookie onto the woman's lap as if that small gesture could undo a lifetime of cold. From across the sidewalk, Elliot Monroe, Laya's father, spun around, phone still to his ear, stunned. There, on a bench at the bus stop, his daughter stood in front of a stranger who looked more shadow than human. Pale, exhausted, silent. She didn't ask for help. She didn't speak first. But something about her presence was louder than anything Elliot had heard that day. "Laya," he called, voice taut. Ending his call, he rushed forward, instinctively pulling his daughter back and crouching next to her. "Ma'am, are you okay? What's going on?" The woman raised both hands, palms out. "Nothing. I didn't touch her. She just came over." Her voice was hoarse but calm. Her skin flushed too red in all the wrong places. Her breath fogged the air in short, shallow bursts. She was freezing. She was sick. "I didn't ask for anything," she added quietly, "but thank you for having a kind child." That's when Elliot saw the other half of the cookie crumbled on the snow next to a starving stray cat now nibbling at it. She hadn't begged, she hadn't approached, but she fed the cat before herself. He took Laya's hand, ready to walk away, because that's what you do in this city. You keep your distance. You move on. But before he could, the woman tried to stand and collapsed. Hard. Her knees buckled her body, crumpling against the cold steel of the bus stop post. Dad, Laya cried, tugging at his coat. Elliot didn't think twice. He rushed back, checking her pulse barely there. Her forehead burned under the ice-cold skin. She was running a dangerous fever. Her lips were cracked. Her hands scraped. She was dying, and no one else was coming. Without a word, Elliot lifted her in his arms. She was frighteningly light. Under her coat, her sleeves were torn, arms bruised. She didn't fight. She just whimpered into his chest, too weak to do anything else. "Come on, Laya," he said, urgency in his voice. "We have to help her." Laya looked up at him with wide eyes. "Is she gonna die?" "Not if we get her warm." They moved fast. 3 blocks home had never felt so long. What Elliot didn't know then was that this woman would do more than survive that night. She would redefine everything he believed about healing second chances and what it truly means to come home. The fire crackled. The room smelled like cedarwood and something faintly sweet, maybe cinnamon. Isabel stirred beneath the heavy wool blanket, eyelids fluttering against the warmth. Her last memory was the bitter cold, and a little girl with cookie crumbs on her mittens. Now there was warmth, a couch, a pillow beneath her head, a coat folded neatly at her feet. None of this was hers, which made it feel both comforting and terrifying. And then she heard it, crayons scratching against paper. Laya sat cross-legged on the rug, coloring with the kind of focus only small children possess. Her drawing was chaotic, full of color. But what stood out were the 3 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small, and in between, a figure with a halo of yellow scribbles for hair. Above them, in slightly crooked letters, "My home." Isabel blinked. She tried to sit up, but her head pounded, her limbs sluggish. The movement made Laya look up. "You woke up," the girl beamed, holding up her drawing. "That's us." Isabel's throat burned. Her voice came out in a rasp. "Us." "Yep." Laya nodded. "Daddy says you can stay until you're better. But I think you should stay forever." Before Isabel could respond, Elliot walked in. His expression was unreadable as he set a glass of water and a bowl of soup on the table. "You passed out," he said, tone clipped. "You had a fever. I didn't have a choice." There was no malice in his voice, just facts. "When you're well," he added, "you'll leave." It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. "Thank you," Isabel said, softly lowering her eyes. Laya lingered beside her, clearly not ready for the conversation to end, but Elliot gently took her hand. Let her rest. The rest of the day passed quietly. At dinner, Isabel chose the far end of the breakfast bar, not the table where father and daughter sat. She ate slowly, politely. Didn't ask for seconds. Didn't ask for anything at all. When Elliot wasn't looking, she smiled at Leia's endless chatter stories about Princess's Recess and the idea of building a snow bakery. But every time Elliot glanced her way, her eyes dropped. She didn't belong, and she knew it. Later that evening, while helping clear the dishes, Isabel reached for a tray of cups. Her sweater sleeve slid down just a bit, and that's when Elliot saw it. A scar. Long. Jagged. Faded with time, but still there, winding across her wrist like an old story no one had asked about in years. He said nothing, but the image burned into his mind. That night, long after the dishes were washed and the lights were dimmed, Elliot heard it, a sound from the living room. A soft groan. Pained. Muffled. He rose from bed and found her curled on the couch, pale and sweating. Fever rising again. He didn't hesitate this time. He called a private physician. When the doctor arrived, Isabel barely stirred as he examined her. "She's dehydrated," the doctor said. "Fever's high. She needs fluids, rest, and care. Does she have any insurance? Anyone we can call?" Isabel mumbled, voice cracking. "No one." "There's no one to call." The words hung in the air like frost. The doctor didn't press. He left instructions packed up and disappeared into the snowy night. Elliot stood in the doorway staring at this stranger asleep on his couch, battling more than just a fever. He didn't know her story, but he knew pain. He'd seen it before in the mirror the night the hospital called about his wife. The night he became a widower and a father all at once. And for reasons he couldn't yet explain, he didn't feel like walking away this time. Not this time. The next morning brought a softer light. Isabel opened her eyes to the scent of honey and ginger. A steaming mug sat beside her, resting on a folded napkin. She reached for it, her fingers trembling. Beneath the mug was a note. 4 simple words. "You're not invisible." It wasn't a grand gesture, but for someone who had felt unseen for years, it cracked something open inside her. By the time Elliot came downstairs, Isabel was in the kitchen, not hovering, not apologizing, just present. Hair tied back, sleeves rolled, hands stirring a pot of soup made from leftover vegetables. "I insisted," she told him when he raised an eyebrow. "Let me contribute. I feel more human when I'm useful." The kitchen, once sterile and silent, suddenly felt lived in. Even Leia noticed. She hummed as she colored at the table occasionally, chiming in with questions or wild ideas like turning the backyard into a snow bakery. Isabel nodded along, answering like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then Elliot tasted the soup. He froze. It was the same flavor his wife used to make. The rosemary, the pepper, that mysterious, comforting sweetness he never could replicate. He glanced at Isabel. She was focused, calm, like she belonged, like this wasn't temporary. But years of single fatherhood had taught him to stay cautious, to question the timing of comfort. That night after Leia went to bed, Elliot gave into the nagging instinct he'd been resisting. He searched her name, and there it was, second result. A headline promising design student accused of stealing from NY showcase. The article didn't scream guilt, but it didn't scream innocence either. There was a photo Isabel younger, polished, bright-eyed, not convicted but still ruined. A career stalled, a reputation shattered. He leaned back, letting the screen cast its cold glow across his face. He wanted to believe in the woman who'd become part of his home, but the doubt was there, creeping in like cold under a door. The next day he caught her in the hallway. "There's something I need to ask you," he said. Isabel didn't flinch when he showed her the article. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she met his eyes, steady. "That's me," she said. "You found it." "Did you do it?" he asked, careful. "No." Her voice didn't tremble. "I didn't." She crossed her arms. But no one cared about the truth. Sponsors vanished. Friends disappeared. My landlord doubled my rent. The guy I trusted emptied my account. That story took everything. Elliot stayed quiet. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. I figured you'd look me up, she said. You strike me as someone who hates loose ends. She was right. I didn't steal anything, she added, quieter now. That design was mine. But people don't always want facts. They want someone to blame. She held his gaze. So tell me, do you believe me? Elliot opened his mouth, closed it, hesitated. That was all she needed. Thanks for your honesty, she said softly. Then she walked to the guest room and began folding her clothes. When Leia saw her at the door, her eyes widened. You're leaving? Isabel knelt. I have to, sweetheart. Leia offered her teddy bear with both hands. So you won't be alone. Isabel hugged the bear and Leia tightly. She didn't say goodbye, just kissed the girl's forehead and stepped out into the cold. From the stairs, Elliot watched them with a lump in his throat. Watched his daughter cry for someone she'd only known a few days, but trusted like family, and something inside him broke. That night, Elliot barely slept. He stared at his ceiling for hours, mind circling the memory of Isabel leaving without a word to him and without a real goodbye to Leia. When he finally passed by his daughter's room, he found her curled up in bed, wide awake, clutching the bear Isabel had once sewn back together. She didn't even say goodbye. Leia whispered, not angry, just heartbroken. I know, Elliot said, kneeling beside her. She was part of our family. His voice caught. She was someone special. Leia pointed to the drawing taped above her bed. The one with 3 stick figures holding hands beneath crayon words scrawled in bright colors. Please stay. Elliot turned away quickly, wiping his face. He didn't know what had shattered more that night, his trust or the silence he'd used to protect it. Hours later, something stirred him. It was too quiet. He checked Leia's bed empty. His chest tightened. Then he saw it, the front door cracked open, snow curling in through the gap. He rushed outside. Leia's tiny frame was halfway down the block, trudging through the snow in her slippers, following the faint glow of a street lamp. Leia, Elliot shouted. She didn't turn around. His heart pounded as he ran to her, but before he could reach her, she slipped, landing hard on her hands. He saw the red blooming in the snow, and then someone else moved faster than him. Isabel. She was there, kneeling beside Leia, pulling a handkerchief from her coat pocket and gently binding the bleeding palm. Hold still, sweetheart, she whispered, tucking Leia's hair behind her ear. We'll get you warm again soon. Elliot slowed his pace. Something about the way Isabel moved, protective, calm, present, made everything else fall away. The city didn't exist. The night didn't matter. Just the way she held Leia's hand. When he reached them, Leia looked up at him, trembling. I wanted to find her, she said, tears mixing with snowflakes. Elliot nodded. You did. Then he turned to Isabel. She met his eyes, barely breathing, afraid to be let in again. And for the first time in years, Elliot let down the last wall he'd built. We need you, he said, voice cracking. Leia, still holding Isabel's coat, added softly, Don't leave again, Mommy. The word hit the air like lightning and lullabies at once. Isabel's breath hitched. She looked between them, a man who had learned to feel again, and a little girl who never stopped believing. Please don't, Leia whispered. The snow kept falling, but none of them noticed anymore. Elliot reached out his hand, not demanding, not pleading, just open. This wasn't about rescue. It was about return, and Isabel finally took it. Morning came soft and golden, the kind of light that feels like a promise. In the kitchen, Leia stood on her little stool, carefully pressing a heart-shaped cookie cutter into buttery dough. Flour dusted her nose. Beside her, Isabel was laughing, sleeves rolled, cheeks flushed with warmth, not cold. Her hands moved with ease now, not hesitation. Don't forget the hearts, Leia said seriously. Hearts mean love. How could I forget the most important shape? Isabel smiled and meant it. From the doorway, Elliot watched them both. One child by blood, one woman by choice. And yet, there was no distinction anymore. The kitchen, once sterile and silent, now hummed with life, the clatter of spoons, the bubbling of batter, and most of all, laughter. He walked in, wrapping one arm around each of their backs, kissed the top of Leia's head, then Isabel's. You know, he whispered, this is the first morning I haven't woken up feeling like something was missing. Isabel looked up at him. Her guard was gone. Nearby on the counter, a small handwritten card sat tucked beneath a folded napkin. Elliot picked it up. Let's learn to stay. Isabel. His throat tightened. Later that morning, Elliot led Isabel and Leia to a room in the house that had always stayed closed. He stopped at the door, turned to her and said, I never knew what this space was meant for. Until now. He opened it. Sunlight poured in through tall windows. A drafting table stood by the wall. Spools of fabric lined one side. Sketches and mood boards covered another. On the back wall, a newly mounted sign read, "Isabel's Tomorrow, a place to begin again." She stepped inside slowly, fingertips grazing the edge of the table, eyes glassy with disbelief. "I never thought anyone would build a room just for me," she whispered. Elliot replied, "You built something in us first. This is just giving it roots." And then from down the hallway, "Let's make pancakes. Mommy and Daddy." Laya's voice rang like a bell through the house. They laughed, really laughed, and walked hand in hand back toward the kitchen. The table was set with mismatched plate syrup bottles and a lopsided mountain of butter cookies. As they sat, Isabel reached into her pocket and pulled out something folded, a handkerchief, old, faded, but embroidered with care. She unfolded it. Beneath the delicate floral threadwork was a new line. "Family isn't built by blood, but by the hands that hold you when you're lost." She placed it in the center of the table. Elliot stared at it for a long moment, then traced the final word with his thumb. "You held us both before we even knew we needed to be held." Isabel looked at him, then at Laya. The man who learned to love again. The child who always believed love was enough. She smiled not with fear, not with doubt, but with certainty. They hadn't found perfection. They'd found something better. Home. Not born of walls or history or certainty, but built quietly, steadily by choosing to stay. They hadn't found perfection. They'd found something better. Home. Not born of walls or history or certainty, but built quietly, patiently, by choosing to stay. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever found home in someone unexpected? Share your story in the comments. We read every one. And if this story stirred something in you, don't leave just yet. Stick around and explore our playlist. Best of Prime Tales, real stories. Real people. Real hope. Because sometimes the stories that stay with us are the ones we didn't see coming.